Hi there, I'm Angel Giuliano and I run a small business in Malta. Business model innovation has helped me to improve my business by challenging the status quo and trying something new. It was scary, but it worked. As a business owner myself, I will guide you step by step through this MOOC. Welcome to the value of business models. Do you want to increase your revenues? Does your business need a makeover? Business model innovation can help you. We will show you how in this first video. Have fun!
Good evening to all at home and in our studio. Welcome at Business Makeovers webinar, The Value of Business Modeling. My name is Thea Dullemans and I'll be your host this evening. You joining us tonight probably means that you are looking to improve your business and wonder if you need to change your business. Maybe you're wondering how to do this. Tonight's focus will be on finding the appropriate tools to perform a makeover and how business model innovation can help in convincing others of your business ideas, especially investors. We've invited people who know how to do this, all with a proven track record in understanding and or living the entrepreneurial spirit. But before I go over to introducing our guests here, I'd like to remind you all that you can pose all your questions directly to our experts by using the question function at the right hand of your screen. At the end of this webinar, we'll be having a live Q&A session. So now I'd like to move over to our guests, starting with Robin Slaghorst. Welcome.
Thank you.
Robin is founder of Symbit, a leading online funding portal for startups and SMEs. Symbit was one of the world's first equity-based crowdfunding initiatives, bringing together entrepreneurs and investors. Also co-owner of several companies. Thank you for being here, Robin. And sitting next to him, Wim Hulsing. Welcome. Wim is Associate Professor Strategic Management and Entrepreneurship at the Rotterdam School of Management of the Erasmus University. His research and books are numerous and published all over the world. Good to have you. And then at the other side of our table...
Hello, Thea.
Hello, Ben. Ben van den Burg, CCO of Triple, an innovative company that hosts websites and develops consumer applications. Ben is also co-owner of spin-offs Repudo and Slide Jockey and ex-skating professional for Holland. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Unfortunately, missing today from our panel is our own Mark de Reuver, Associate Professor in Delft. He very much regrets not being here. He has got a nasty flu and I hope you recover quickly, Mark. And then, the last guest at our table, Business Makeover's own Tim Verhaker.
Thank you.
Senior advisor at Innovalor and a senior researcher at the University of Technology in Delft. He has over 14 years experience in developing business models and applying businesses model tooling. So that was quite a mouthful. So Timber, I've been talking about business models quite a lot now. What is a business model and how can it help you?
Yes, well, that's of course a very good question given this webinar. So speaking a bit on business models, what they are all about creating value for your customers, about capturing value for yourself. And there are lots of definitions of business models, but I think in the end it boils down to that you want to create value for your customers, and value you express in a value proposition. And of course the question is, okay, how can you make value for yourself? How do you create revenues for yourself? What's the mechanism behind it? And who's going to pay for your product or service? As very often it's not the user that is paying, but it's another party that is paying for the service. And then the final aspect is very much about how do you produce your business model? How do you get your service and your product to your customers? So these are the four aspects of a business model. And business modeling as an act or a process is very much a means to systematically create a business model and innovate your business. And does that matter? Well, we think yes, that's important, because it helps you to structure complexity and it also helps you to create the right designs and architectures to make it work. It's a good tool for communication and to bring across your ideas and message in a structured way, also in a convincing way, I think. And finally, a business model is very much about experimentation, new experiments in value creation. And we think that's very important when you want to do something new. Well, maybe it can sound a little bit simple, easy, creating this value. In practice, it's pretty hard. But luckily enough, there are some tools to help you to make life a little bit easier. And they also can stimulate experimentation. And given the people here at the table, I would very much like to hear what are your experiences with using tools and business models.
Yes.
So,
Who
Thea,
likes to go first? You.
I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Kijk, what you said, there are, in my opinion, standard business questions. And of course, when you start a business and when you have a product or you have something or you think of something, I would bring that to the world, you have to ask all those questions. So what is the value proposition? What are the customers? What is my cost structure? What is the legal part of it? So you have to give answers of all those questions. And you can do it, of course, in your head. Because when you have a lot of experience, you see, well, this is my customer and that is the problem with legal. But it's really useful, in my opinion. Sometimes it's indeed so it's complex, and then you write it down. That's the basic, in my opinion.
Yep.
It also comes down to persuade others to basically to buy your product, to work with you. So it's only not just a document. I think it's basically also something in your mind to make certain strategic choices explicit, like in terms of where's the value being created, what are your vulnerabilities, etc. So it's a documentation tool to kind of use it as a checklist, but it's also a persuasion tool to persuade investors that you know your business, that you know the metrics, that you looked at it critically from a consumer point of view or from an investor's point of view. So that is something I would like to add. And of course, an important one, if you don't use a business model, what will happen? The chances that you will survive are not that high.
Robin, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, I mean, entrepreneurship, there are a lot of variables you have to bear in mind when you start a business, when you grow a business. And business models can help you structure the choices you have to make to improve certain variables that can help you convince people that work in your company, investors that you need to have involved to grow your business. So business models, do you need them per se to be successful? Probably not. Does it make your life a lot easier? Yes, I think so.
Okay.
So I can give an example.
Yeah.
Because so at our company, some made with a board, with a playing board, with a game. So and they were making something with with augmented reality, and they said that's great. And I just asked the question, how big is that market? And they never thought about that question. And for me is that that's weird,
okay,
because they like the product a lot.
Yeah.
So what you see a lot making you are so full of
your own ideas,
and then you have to ask those questions and indeed also to convince others. Otherwise they think, what are you doing? The market is only 800 million or something like that. That was the market with the board games.
Wow, yeah, I can imagine them being full of it. Yeah. Okay, so there is a lot of things it can be useful for, but do you maybe have an example of where it's used practical with a customer, or do you use it in the schooling system, or?
Well, for us, when we are in contact with a lot of companies and we venture a lot, the things we do use is one, a business model canvas. It's good really at the start to get some feeling of what is your value that you bring to the customer, what relationships do you need, who are your stakeholders, etc. Yeah. But then the main thing missing in a business model canvas for us and for me is the variable time. So there's no planning at all in the business model canvas. So what we add is we call it, well, we don't call it that, that's just how it's called. It's called an OGSM model. Yeah. And it basically lays down your objectives, the goals you need to achieve in order to reach that objective, the strategies you take to reach those goals and the measures you have in place to measure your progress, etc. And that really helps you to really efficiently make a business plan, maybe in even one page. So business model canvas, maybe a why, how, what structure of your offering and an OGSM. Those three tools combined for us basically makes it really efficient to make a business plan and to get some sort of grasp of what we're doing, where we're going. So I can really advise starting entrepreneurs and even also entrepreneurs that are already working in their businesses to use those tools.
Okay, thanks for that.
As an example.
Yeah. Sounds really good. And okay, this is the planning idea. Being an entrepreneur, you have your gut feeling, your instincts you like to follow. What do you think about that? Is that something you see regularly next to the...
Yeah, I can give an example.
Yeah.
No,
You're the entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah, now what happens, because what I said, that is the basic, the business modeling. Because nobody give any money to Facebook in the beginning, to Google at the beginning, because that was, so you have to have something that you feel, well, that's I believe in it, and
the drive.
During the process of building that company, it become better and better. And because when you have, for example, you have one day, are you going to draw all the key questions? You're going to write them down, or you are going to talk with potential customers. And I suggest talk with the potential customers and write down in the evening, in 5 minutes, those questions. So it's really important that you have the feeling what's happening for the customer and what are you building
for the customer.
Yes,
okay.
I think that's really important.
I think it's one of the main drivers of business going down basically in the first years of existence, is the reason that they have a solution for something that's not a problem. So talking to customers indeed is a very good way to validate your idea, because most entrepreneurs we talk to, they just come with an idea, they have a product, they love it, they're very enthusiastic, and like, what problem are you solving, for whom, are they willing to pay, is this problem? They don't have answers to those very fundamental questions. They just love the thing that they have drawn down or thought of in their head. So that's basically the wrong way around. So that you should indeed start with validating your market before.
That's what you advise them before they come to your platform.
Adding to the customer mentioned by Robin, of course, then the next step is, you have your customers, they have an interest in you. You go out, talk with potential customers and their willingness to pay. Then it comes down to the margins, to the revenues, how can you make money? And of course also the cost structure, that's of course very important. These are important metrics, often they are forgotten, like we have some customers who are interested in it, then you have to set a price. And and most entrepreneurs are too naive, we have a cost structure and then we take 10%, 15% margin. That's something, you're competing with established companies. So this is something, an element of naivety, and I think business models help you with cutting back on naivety. So basically you show professionalism or emerging professionalism, that you know the metrics, the key issues, what investors look at, what customers appreciate, etc. So it helps you to cut back on naivety and amateurism.
Yeah, but what I noticed also, for example, I spoke with an investor, just a Dutch example, and he said you can never combine B2C with B2B. And I'm not agree with him. But he said, well, that's the basics. You cannot combine it. But sometimes you need first to go to the B2B market, to learn, and when you have make your skills and your muscles, you build it up there. Then maybe the next phase is to the B2C. But he was because in his business model that was not in his mind. So that's what I think. Then you have to, I'm not agree. So you have to convince
them. A business model sometimes shows you what is your product and what is and who's your customer. Like for instance, it's a cliche example, but in the Facebook setting, for instance, people would think it's a B2C platform and they're servicing all these users and members, but in essence, it's a B2B company selling advertisement space to all these people. So the user is the product instead of the customer. And sometimes business models can help you understand what you're actually doing, how you're creating value, and for whom.
Yeah, but also with the business model, for example, the same investor, he said, well, what is the IP? Is it hard to build it also? But it was a software product. Yeah, of course. When you put 10 students and they're gonna code, so it's there. But everyone so everyone can copy it. But in the end, it's that you have thought about that product more. You have a year advantage in thinking about it, so you are further with your product to when someone else start to code. So that's also the standard thinking. Women, it's more you have to convince them, but a lot of investors are also really, they are looking at metrics that are quite
everything will be commoditized, so it's hard for investors to really separate the good from the bad, and then they're still looking for. And traditionally, they're looking for these intangibles or these patents or like this uniqueness that's probably in many industries will never be there anymore, except for how deep your understanding is of your customer. Yeah, that's the true competitive advantage.
Then, of course, also in order to persuade investors, you have to show flexibility. And of course, maybe the investor you've been talking to or listened to was not the right person. So try another one, and maybe this person is open to. So basically, there are different business models for different audiences, for different stakeholders. Of course, the business model you have for your internal employees is different than for your customers or distributors, and. So that's also important to realize. It helps you. It's a tool helping you to communicate with people, and that you show that you demonstrate to know the business well. You know your backyard, you know your operations, you know your factory, etc. You know your product and your customers and the whole chain.
And it provides you with a structure to communicate that. What you've developed, that what you know about your own business. I think that's also a strong thing. And I also like what you say about having different business models sometimes from different customer groups, even with more or less the same product. I think that's also quite interesting sort of thing with business models. There can be almost kind of a portfolio of business models to sort of add up when you serve multiple customers.
Can you give an example?
Well, sometimes you have versions. If you think about a freemium model, for example, one part is offered for free to one customer type that uses it for free, whereas there are other customers that are willing to pay some money for additional features. So they are more or less combining different value propositions for different groups of people. So I think that's a sort of an interesting thing.
Product market combination.
Yes, in fact, yeah. Business modeling sort of helps you to think about these things.
Okay. Well, so bottom line, there are a lot of business models which you can apply to specific customer, the types, the cases, and which model. The most important thing is how do you combine the right business model to the right case or customer type. Timber, how can one as a business owner find the right tool?
Yes, that's a good question. Like you say, you want to make the right business model. Tools can help you, but how do you find the right tool for the right question? Luckily, we have the Business Makeover platform and a small movie explaining the tools on there.
Okay. I suppose we go over to the explaining of the tools.
Business Makeover is a website that supports entrepreneurs like you with business model innovation. It provides practical tools, inspiring cases, and valuable help from your peers to help you reach your ambitions. What do you want to achieve with your business? Start or grow your business? Maybe test if your business is future-proof? Make it more profitable? These are some of the typical goals that entrepreneurs have when they want to innovate their business model. Select one of these goals. For example, click on Start a new business. To start a new business, you need many things. Knowledge about your customers and market, an attractive product, and a viable business model. To get specific support with any of these needs, select one of the options. For example, develop a viable business model. This will guide you to the right combination of tools to help you develop a business model for your new business. A case example of a fellow entrepreneur is added for inspiration. In 3 steps, you are guided to reach this goal. In the first step, you focus on defining your product. In the second, you create your business model. And finally, you look at the business case. Each step is supported by a practical tool. A well-known tool for creating a business model is the Business Model Canvas. By clicking on the tool, you get practical support about how to use the tool. click on Download to get templates, explanations and examples to start applying the tool. You can also use our web tool and create a business model canvas online. Of course, start a new business and develop a viable business model are just examples. You can browse through the list on the main menu and get support for the goal that you want to achieve. Or maybe you simply want to go to a tool that you like. That is easy too. Find all tools on the Tools Overview page and click the one you want to use. And if you are looking for inspiration, then start reading the stories of fellow entrepreneurs about their business model innovation on our Cases page. In our Learn section, you'll find many topical videos on business model innovation. Registering at Business Makeover puts you in direct contact with fellow entrepreneurs. Share your opinions or participate in business model challenges. Note that Business Makeover is already available in 7 languages: German, English, Spanish, French, Italian, Dutch and Polish. So, go to businessmakeover.eu. Sign up today to start working in your business makeover and realize your ambitions.
One of the workshops was a business model. Okay. www.businessmakeover.eu. Timber, you've done quite some research. What is the most important aspect of a business model for an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it has already said more or less. It's very important that you create a convincing story for a customer, for a user, to start using your service or your product. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, you need a good story to your investors, so the financial part. So it's a good story to customers and a good story to your investors. I think that's really the key thing in creating a successful or a viable business model.
Yeah. Robin,
Okay.
you probably see a lot of business models coming by to your platform. What's your experience?
Definitely, yeah. We see a lot of business plans, at least. Hopefully, sometimes they have a good business model, and then we can help them. Yeah, it's already mentioned, but I mean, having a good business model obviously is the only way to generate future value for your potential investors, and that's what we do. So investors, they look, of course, at the financial elements of your plan, but a business model is more than just metrics. It's also making sure that the other elements that are interesting for an investor, like how is your team structured, of course, how do you capture value, but also so like the soft, did you ever win a business award, for instance? All those things can come together, well, not in the business model, but of course in the business plan. So the business model is an important element of it, but not the only thing an investor looks at. So it should of course be there, but it's more like a fundament, but it's not the only thing that really matters for an investor. So it's part of the equation, basically.
Do you need to help the entrepreneurs often by creating a bit more solid business case, or a lot of the people that come to you already do their job pretty well?
Well, most of the time it's pretty difficult to communicate your story convincingly, basically to outsiders, because you know your story, you know all the things and all the little details, but telling that in a structured way externally, that's quite difficult. So that's of course where we help them to structure their story, the qualitative parts, like I just mentioned, and the business model parts, in order to convince an investor to invest, of course.
Okay, clear. Thank you. Ben, do you have examples for?
Yeah, maybe it's a nice example for we had, and I have also a question for Wim, because first I would like to know. No, what question do people often forget in all those questions? And then
I would say that I think basically organizations, if they start working with business models, they create bureaucracy. And there's nothing wrong with bureaucracy. And basically, I just talked about killing naivety and becoming more professional and less amateurish. But basically, why are you creating a business model? It helps you to become more reliable So basically have your operations in place, but also accountable to maybe investors, to your customers, etc. So you set procedures in place. Of course, there's also, you should be worried about too many rules and etc. But it helps you to streamline procedures within the organization. So there's an element of bureaucracy, and you would say like, hey, but it increases the chances of survival of companies, because most startups within 5 years, they're no longer there. 60-70% is belly up, disappeared, disbanded, bankrupt, etc. So business models like business plan, solid business plan, and maybe business planning or business tooling as a continuous learning exercise, reflection, improve, adjust, etc. helps companies to survive.
Yeah, but I will give an example. Wim, we did everything. We wrote everything down, and the idea was, the proposition was, when you watch television, there's a fragment that is really great. You put your phone near the television, and you get that fragment, and you send that fragment. It's so good. I send it to
all my friends.
All your friends.
Okay.
Now that's great. Everyone would like to do that, and we put it down, and we work. And who's the customer? That's everyone, and it was great. They want to pay for it. It's great. Now advertise. We put it, and then we start discussing, and then it cannot be a consumer product. It's impossible, because the content right owners, they don't agree with it.
No.
So now we transfer it to a B2B proposition for broadcasters who own the rights. They can use it really quickly to edit a certain fragment. They put it on social media, and they have extra views. Okay. So that's interesting. You put so business modeling helped us to create everything, and then it's not possible. And otherwise you start building, you make everything, and then you see it later. And now we knew it, and then we switched to the B2B, and now it's a product, and it can go. So that's it.
But the need remains the same, right? That's the funny thing. The need that you're trying to, the customer need, or not the customer need, but the user need in this case, was still the exact same thing, even though the payer, the customer, was on the other side of the equation.
So that's an example for you.
I'm really happy with your example.
Interesting here that you needed other parties to make it work. And it, in the end, everybody who is cooperating somehow, you need a kind of win-win there. And in this way, by turning it around, apparently you found this win-win with this right owner to make the business model in their benefit also. So that's cool. I think that's also part of business model experimentation, to sort of turn around things and start looking at different options, different ways to basically offer the same value to users.
But I would be very careful with experimenting with your business model if you are in the startup phase, because there is, of course, the risks of the survival chances of startups are not that high. So you have to be, you don't have a lot of choices, you don't have a lot of calls to be made, not a lot of shots to be fired at. So you have to be very, very careful. So you can't come up with generous experimentation. That's something for the large businesses. They have deep pockets. Startups, small businesses don't have that. So that's
you have to be flexible.
To some extent, maybe it's an idea to separate the two. Some kind of exploitation money is coming in, maybe through consultancy, and in your exploration activities, you carry out new activities, and so you spread the risk to some extent. That is maybe something.
What you often see is that startups, they choose a business model, but they vary with their pricing models. So instead of monthly subscription versus a yearly fee, or that's where I see the experimentation mostly in the startup scene, and indeed larger corporations have more money to experiment.
Okay.
So what's your next part?
My next part, I was actually wondering, I think both of you are co-owners of other companies, maybe spin-offs. Do you use, before funding one of those companies, do you use business models to test them yourselves?
To evaluate?
Yeah.
Well, there are of course a lot of models you can use, and especially in venturing and in investing, especially in the equity space, an important model is of course valuation models. So how is a company valued, and we like to use basically 3 axes when we look at a company, and so 3 topics. And the first topic is the model. And the model is, are you able to acquire a customer for less than it will bring you in over the lifetime? So customer acquisition cost versus lifetime value. That's basically the essence of the model part of the equation. Then we have the second one, and that's the organizational design. So how is your company structured and designed to deliver the value you're creating here to your market, to other markets, to internationally, etc. So how are you structured, and what is your team? What does your team look like to offer the value? And the third one is capitalization. So how do you capitalize on the model you have with the team, basically on those 2 pillars? And how do you capture that on your P&L, your balance sheet, and how is your company then valued now? If you're asking for 1 million now at a valuation 10 million, which could be a very good valuation or very high, but at least convince me that in 3 years, my 1 million euro is 3 million, and your company value is 30 million. And what do you need to have achieved on the model side and on the team side to reach the valuation of 30 million? And if those 3 elements are a convincing story, then you have a very good chance to raise capital. And that's basically what the Rocket Internet companies do, the big Silicon Valley companies. They make sure they have a model in a very small niche, and they make sure that they can acquire a customer for 1 euro, and it will give them 2 euros in value over the long run. They have, experienced teams because they get a lot of funding already in the beginning. And then they start capitalizing, and they raise 10 million, 20 million, 30 million in order to keep the model running. And if they can keep the 1 euro in is 2 euro out model running, then you create value for the investor, and that's why you can raise enormous amounts of capital, like in the 10s or the 50 or the 100 millions, as long as you keep the model in place and you can address markets that are big enough, then you're able to capture the value, and everybody's happy. So that's basically the interplay, which is not easy. It's very complex, but that's how we look at companies and see how they score on those elements.
Okay, well, interesting. Thank you. To our viewers at home, we are nearing a Q&A round now with our panel. If you have any question you would like to pose these gentlemen, you can do it now. The questions we do not have time for will be published and answered later. And remember, the chat function is at the right hand of your screen.
So the questions. I'm curious, but they will come, I think.
One of the workshops was a business model workshop, and we discovered all different kind of tools. So for instance, we started with personas. We used as well the freemium models, but also licensed models of fee for the municipalities.
So we started out with the business model canvas, and this helped us to really find out what the common theme was in which Checkmetrics could help them.
Kind of tool that we used is called the STOF model. You know a lot about it, in which it describes the business model of the company in terms of the service, technology, organization, and financial domains. And inside those, there are some features that are really important, called critical design issues. So we really focused on describing well the business model of the company according to those.
Supplier.
To the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So there's the real core and there's suppliers, and you know what's happening in the core, but you also take care that you control what the suppliers do.
Core companies and people, they are developing the whole system.
And then the other thing is that platforms work well when they are for free, but when you want to make a business model, and you must really be careful to balance out well the cost for the customer and the profit for you. So the profit for you is that you can make this platform grow and develop enough to address their needs, but also the customers, they have a certain win from it, and you must make very clear to them that this cost for them could be a good balance.
And the tool that we use, that is the process, it's called road mapping. We use the tool from Business Makeover site, and that showed us the steps on how do we need to do the road mapping process, basically.
We are back.
We're back live. Okay, thank you all for your questions. I've seen some nice questions coming already. Unfortunately, we cannot answer them all. So we have made a short selection. And the first question is from Hugo to Ben.
Oh.
And it says...
Who's Hugo? It's
just one of our viewers who is so enthusiastic to pose a question. So, Hugo to Ben, do you recommend the use of interviews to validate your idea?
Interviews is really official, but people always give social nice answers. But in the end, you have to ask people, so that's an interview.
Yeah.
But you have to be really careful because people always say something else than they are really doing. So it's I suggest, because especially in software, it's really easy to make a POC, a demo, and let them play with it. What we do is always we make a really small, easy version, and we say play with it. But that's not with all the products possible. So
I suggest it's a good idea. It's a good suggestion. I suggest my students to go to a trade fair.
Yeah.
Trade shows, etc., because then most of them, they don't have an experience with the business, and that basically everyone is there, the whole value chain, the whole stakeholders involved in their future or current business model, and also it shows them to go out, to talk with potential customers, partners, etc., and it's also kind of a real showcase of their entrepreneurialism.
But one thing is really, really important, enthusiasm is free. We always say when we have a meeting and so on, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's free. But then when people are gonna pay, when they're gonna pay, that's important.
Yeah.
So how do you call it? It's the your mama test or something like?
Is that your mama test?
The mama test.
Yeah, the mama test.
I mean, your mama.
Yeah.
Mom is always down.
You're lovely.
You have to overstep your mom and really ask a potential customer if he's willing to pay.
The more critical ones.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks. I've got a question from Messias to Simbit, to Robin. Is it necessary, Robin, to create a business model for every product or service you want to offer?
Yes, I think so. Well, you need a business model in at least. Well, maybe you don't have to make a business plan for every product. If you're a company that's making multiple products, offering it to the same market, the same niche, then maybe making a business plan every time is not necessary. But having a business model of how you're going to capture the value of a specific product, that should always be in place. If you have to write a whole business plan, I don't think so. Business planning for every product I would definitely recommend, obviously, because otherwise you never know how you're progressing. If you're doing well, then you better than you expected or worse, etc. So business planning, yes, maybe a whole business plan. If everything is the same industry, same market, maybe not a whole business plan, but definitely a business model.
I see you nodding. You agree?
Yeah, I think it makes definitely adding to Robin. I think you have to separate between product-based business models and, of course, service-based. That's of course services are very the customer is involved, etc. So product can be anonymously sold and traded, etc. So there could be differences. So it's better to separate between product-based and service-based models.
I see you a bit of jealous.
No, that's true. But
anything?
Ben is thinking.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking because even with your I think I agree. Good. No, but one subject we didn't discuss, and I would like to discuss
we all agree.
also. I know because it will take hours. It doesn't matter. But we keep the stream running. Is that it's really interesting that we go more and more to a service industry, and everything becomes a service. So that's why you said also. The view of the customer is more and more important. We go from that you have a demand to like normally I have a product and I sell the product, and now you have a really flexible as a backend. I can provide everything you want, and the customer decide what you want. So that's a change in the digital world. So that's interesting, but that's another I think.
Another webinar.
Yeah, you write it down. Exactly for another webinar. But I guess you're volunteering to be.
Okay. There's a question from him.
Yeah. Thanks for co-hosting tonight. We've got a backup. A question for Mark to Wim. It says, if you have common business sense, can you do without business models? Or if you have a business model, can you do without a common business sense? We need to rephrase? You repeat?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a difficult one, huh?
Yeah.
If you have common business sense, can you do without business models? Let's start with that one first.
I think it's basically business sense is you have to update it and validate, and you have to adjust it continuously, because there are always kind of a new things on the horizon, new things popping up, competitors become proactive, etc. So there is so you have to keep in shape and be prepared for everything. So you cannot rest on your laurels.
Okay, clear. And Mark poses the same questions. If you have a business model, can you then do without common business sense?
I would say no.
No, because you have no competitive advantage in the end. Because it's just you write it down, it's rational and not that special feeling.
So you do need a combination of both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hope.
I will help you.
And there's one thing to be added. I would say keep an eye on the margins. That's something important. So that's on your financials, profits, or that's an important one, because you could basically there's on marketing, customers, etc. But are they really paying, and are they paying enough, etc. So it's about recovering your investments, and that's something. Don't be too cheap. So that is because you have to anticipate like that you have to grow, etc. So there is something you have to take on. It should be future-proof.
Now that's an interesting way, because we said we have to listen to your customer. Customer is really important. Customer is really important. So a lot of companies go to the customer intimacy strategy, and in my opinion, not enough companies go to the product leadership strategy. Just this is good. Now I go to the product again, and you pay for it, but it's good, and I love to pay for it. So that's also a nice, interesting thing. Because with the digital world, we go to the customer intimacy, a lot of companies. So there's also something in it.
Okay, thanks. I get a question from Suva Deep to Wim again. How can startups access the market research data in their pre-funding stages?
Of course, there's always Google, the World Wide Web, so that's you can get a lot of information, but that's just, I would say, dead information. That is, you need basically thick information. So my recommendation for another time would be to go to a trade fair, talk with people. The whole industry is present, just 2 or 3 days on one site, and that I think is the ideal location. And maybe with the other locations where plenty of business people are there, that's maybe also where you get your information, the data, things customers really appreciate about products. I think that's the ideal testing ground.
Okay.
Talk to people and also pitch your plan to potential investors in the industry. They have seen it all. They know it probably all. So if your story is good or bad, you get feedback very rough and very straightforward, and you know where you stand. And if it's bullshit, you also know right away.
I think that's a good last remark to end this session with. I would like to thank the people at home for posing those questions. We've now come to the end of this session on the value and use of business models and finding helpful tools to do a makeover. Thanks again to the experts at our table.
Thea, thank you.
Happy to do so. And of course, a special thanks to the viewers at home for joining us tonight. Don't forget to have a look at businessmakeover.eu for inspiration. And remember, your business makeover can start today or tomorrow. I wish you all a very good evening and hope to welcome you back at our next webinar on how to design a successful business model, in which we will talk about how to start creating a business model and think of value creation for your customers. We touched upon it slightly already, so I hope to see you all then. Bye for now from Delft.